Howdy, howdy. So, I made some problems with gold video, so I thought it would only be fair to make a problems with Bitcoin video because as much as I and many people do like Bitcoin, there are some problems with it. So first is that it's digital, so there's a lot of people out there that don't understand or grasp the idea of a digital asset being valuable, which therefore makes adoption much harder. But because we're increasingly living in a digital age, people are starting to overcome the idea of a digital computer code actually having monetary value. Um, like Fortnite skins, you pay anything that you pay for like through an app or anything like that essentially has value. You can't resell it and it has no monetary value once you purchase it pretty much, but if you can, there's Magic the Gathering has online trading cards, so I guess those potentially have retained value. So anything that is or there's digital art now that on blockchains that have value as well. So we're getting in the very intro steps of people understanding that digital assets can actually have value. So I, it's just one of the hurdles that Bitcoin needs to overcome. Next is the power consumption. So currently Bitcoin uses about as much power as the country of Belgium, and which is around 80 terawatts an hour, 80 terawatt hours, however you say it, which is it's a lot of power. Don't get me wrong, but because of its high energy, I'm gonna turn this into a positive actually. But because of its high energy uses, people are looking for more ways to produce energy cheaper. So, China, for instance, created an artificial sun for I think like less than a second or something like that. But we have these energy projects like the Wendelstein, the Big Boar Terra project. I forget what it's called, but it's just another plasma ball that they're trying to like sustain, to create more energy than what was put into the system, which kind of breaks the laws of thermodynamics, I think, but it just depends on how you look at it. But anyway, power consumption is going to be a big thing for Bitcoin. It's moving every day. Like people just add miners and increase capacity. Companies, large companies, and everything like that. So, but I think it's going to tap into the renewable energy market and really kind of push things a lot further because, like sunlight is a widely available resource that we have all over the planet, and it costs nothing to to get essentially. We just have to make our solar panels much more efficient. So there are ways like wind energy, hydroelectric energy that we can use to that will it's interesting because we have such a high demand for something. Like greed is turning Bitcoin and power usage into something economically and environmentally friendly because we cannot burn fossil fuels to fuel the Bitcoin power consumption, but we want to keep producing Bitcoin because it has monetary value. So greed is turning people to look at like renewable energy resources or plasma or nuclear energy resources just because of the dynamics of like how people operate. Like they want more of this, so they'll work on that to get more of this. So it's just kind of interesting that way. I think that will actually turn into a positive as well. So the first two aren't really big problems right off the bat, but I think the next one kind of is. So with where the miners are physically located, the most amount of mining occurs in China. So it's like over 60% or something like that, where all of the mining occurs in the state of China, the country of China. And so when you need to make, or when the community wants to make a decision on whether or not to change code, to implement, new strategies or ideas to the code or whatever, to Bitcoin, they have to come to what's called consensus. And so you have to get up to over 51%. And those who still don't want to be a part of the new change will probably be forked off or something like that and have their own coin created, and everyone will stick to what is called currently Bitcoin Core, or just regular Bitcoin. So we saw this back in 2016, 2017 with Bitcoin Cash. People thought Bitcoin Cash was the way, but everyone, majority of people stuck with Bitcoin Core, and so we had that um, major fork. It was almost arbitrage, but because of all of these, a lot of these miners are located in China. I don't see it unless the Chinese government really wants to go in and say like, hey, all Chinese miners, you need to agree to um, this plan to increase the number of Bitcoin to 42 million. And if you have a Chinese government official holding a gun to your head as a Bitcoin miner, you're probably just gonna do it because you value your own life versus the it's selfish as it is, but you value your own life more than the value of others people's lives. So like if the Chinese government were to go to all of the Bitcoin miners in China and say, hey, implement this change, they have over 60% currently to right now. They could do it. They could implement pretty much anything if they got to all of the Bitcoin miners. Um, that's just a risk that I see. So I would really like to see the United States, other countries. I think Iran has done international trade with Bitcoin now. Iraq, perhaps, Pakistan, Venezuela. All these countries are getting into Bitcoin because of the sanctions from the US dollar and that their own in house currency is collapsing as well. And most currencies are tied to the US dollar, so when we print more money, it devalues their currency. So it's a vicious cycle, and we're going through hyperinflation slash melt up slash I don't think it's actually going to matter. I kind of explained that in another video. I could probably go more into detail on that, but I think the hash rate I think that actually is a legitimate problem. So I would just, like I said, I would like to see more people in different countries start to pick up a whole lot of mining. Like, maybe some of those Chinese people can just move to other countries and take their rigs with them. I know it'd be a big process, but I, where everything is physically located, I don't think more than 30% should be in any one country, But there again, I explained in another video where we might have borderless countries, and it may not even matter. Like the Chinese government could essentially, and the US government could essentially dissolve because of Bitcoin. Because if you don't need the state anymore to provide for you in any sort of way, then if your money, if we all use the same money, like we have new digital gold, why would we use devaluing paper fiat currencies? Or it's all digital now, they just type numbers in a computer. But I just see like governments could potentially dissolve because of Bitcoin unless they have a lot themselves, which the Chinese government probably does, and they do own a lot of gold as well. We'll see what happens, but it may come down to just individuals. Like you have this group of people that own a whole bunch of Bitcoin, but if they all on an individual level own Bitcoin, then they don't need the group either. Like if you're a government official. And so, maybe then it becomes arbitrage from the inside out of individuals trying to take over that mass of Bitcoin that the government owns. So it'll be interesting to see what comes out in the next decade or two. But in the meantime, we have another thing to deal with, volatility, because it's getting less volatile as the price goes up, because the price swings. Like if $1,000 up or down is less than less than 3% or something like that, or less than 8% right now. 1 to 3%, whatever. Whereas back in 2017, $1,000 price swing was a pretty big deal. When you're under $20,000. So we're gonna continue to see volatility, which is gonna keep people out of the market. But as the price increases over time, it will become less volatile percentage-wise. We did have a decent drop, about 30%, but I think we're past the days of like 50, 60, 70, 80% drops. So we'll probably continue. I would be really surprised if we actually had a 50% drop in Bitcoin in 2021 or moving forward, really. I would just really be surprised if that happened. So I think even though we have volatility now, I think the volatility in the future will start to decrease as the price gets a lot higher. So I hope you have some. And then I don't know if you can see the whole thing, but the concentration of ownership of Bitcoin, the people that actually own Bitcoin. Now, there was somebody else that actually said, I think it was Daily Crypto or someone like that, who said that yes, there is concentration of ownership, but Bitcoin is the most fair cryptocurrency, because for 10 years, you know, I mean, you could have gotten in at any moment in time. It was free and available for you to do so. Um, my only counter argument to this is I didn't hear about Bitcoin until probably 2014, 2015, when and it was like $600 at the time. You know, looking back, that would have been great, but at the time, I just thought that seems really expensive for something I don't know anything about, and so I immediately dismissed it. Um, but and that was my own doing. But I just find that, had there been more information, or we had the Silk Road and Mount Gox, and a couple other big stories, I guess you could say. But I don't think a lot of mainstream media really looked at Bitcoin in a analytic kind of way that was available, that was kind of put out there to everyone. Like, at least it wasn't for me. I didn't really come across. I would love to have to have come across Bitcoin in 2010, 2000. No, because it started in 2011. So like 2009. Sorry, I keep going back. 2012, 2013 would have been a great time to have gotten into Bitcoin. Had I just known about it, I would have. Because 2012, I was really getting into penny stock trading, and I was losing money left and right, but I was kind of making some money. So if I had heard about Bitcoin back then, I probably would have gotten into it and maybe tried to trade it, but I probably would have held on to some anyway. Anyway, concentration of ownership. So yes, Bitcoin is fair. You had the opportunity to get as much as you had, were able to over this, the past 10 years or so, but there are people and wallets that have a greater amount of Bitcoin than any of the rest of us will ever have. Like Chamath Palihapitiya, I believe I said that right. He has over 1 million Bitcoin. I'm just gonna, because he bought $80 million of Bitcoin when it was at $80, or $1 million of Bitcoin. Yeah, and I can only assume that he just continued buying from then on. So he probably has over 1 million Bitcoin. I want to assume that Max Kaiser also has over 1 million Bitcoin. Several million of Bitcoin have assumed to be lost. So I think on the high end it's like 6 million. On the low end it's probably like 2, 3, 4 million. So if you just take away 2 million, that's 4 million Bitcoin already accounted for, which is getting close to like 20% of all of the Bitcoin available. So, and then you have people like Michael Saylor, MicroStrategy, Grayscale, Cathie Wood, Raoul Pal, all these people that just keep jumping in, and I'm sure there's tons of people behind the scenes that just own tens of thousands or hundreds of Bitcoin now, because it's just so expensive now. It's at $37,000 right now as of the making of this video. And those of us that don't have that much, we're just gonna have to hold on and slowly average your way in, make daily. I just buy a little bit every single day, and I'm hoping to one day have enough to be able to retire. So if Bitcoin goes up to 10 million in 10 years, then I'll probably be able to retire. So there's that. But you have the opportunity now to get, it's still cheap, like below 50,000, below 100,000, below 200,000, below 500,000, it's still cheap. Like, because even, I told this to my dad, like 90% of the people that will ever use Bitcoin aren't even born yet. Like, for the next 120 years-ish, Bitcoin will be, if it is, the world reserve currency, it will be used for the next 100 plus years. So imagine, it's only 10 years old, and it's going to last for 140 total, until the last Bitcoin is mined, and then we kind of go on transaction fees or whatever happens then. But it's going to be interesting, because like, you're so early. If you're in it right now, you are so early. No matter what the price is, like if you buy in the next 10, 20 years, you're probably still early, because then I think 99% of the people that will ever use Bitcoin haven't been born yet. But like, I would, yeah, like, it's just insane. And if I have all these ideas floating in my head, and I'm trying to like formulate them, and they're just not working out. So, but these are just some of the problems that I identified with Bitcoin that I see. I still believe in it. I still own it. I'm not selling any. I'm going to hold it forever. Yeah, so I hope this helps somebody.